This happened a few weeks ago. I've lived on my family's farm all my life. I know the land, the animals, and the rhythms of the seasons. I think I've seen it all. But what I experienced recently, I haven't stopped thinking about it. It was a late-night harvest. The moon was high, hanging over the fields like a watchful eye. I was alone on the tractor, and I liked the quiet. As I worked, I heard something in the distance. It was faint, like chanting. At first I figured it was from the neighbor's place, maybe a celebration for a big yield, but an uneasy feeling crept in as the sound echoed through the corn rows. I pushed it aside, focusing on moving the grain. My heart raced, but I tried to shake it off. The harvest went smoothly. That is, until the odd things started happening. My cows became skittish. I often found them huddled together, eyes wide, staring into the dark. I felt a chill each time I walked by them. Days turned into weeks, and the noises didn't stop. Chills ran down my spine as the lights began to flicker. One moment they'd shine bright, the next they'd plunge into darkness. Maybe there was a fault in the wiring, I told myself. But that was a flimsy excuse as I stood outside under the starlit sky, feeling small. What bothered me most were the shadows darting through the corn. At first, I thought it was a deer or something similar. I'd look, but nothing ever showed itself, just the rustling of the tall stalks. One night, I followed the sound of what I swear was laughter. Laughter that chilled me to my bones. It wasn't right, like the land itself was mocking me. Then one evening, I found it. An old grave marker hidden beneath weeds, worn and forgotten. The name was faded, almost unreadable, but the dates, those were clear enough. My stomach dropped as I touched the cold stone. Who was buried here? What had happened on this land long ago? I stood there, my heart racing. Every noise and flicker after that deepened my dread. My mind told me it was connected to something sinister. Yet part of me struggled to believe it. Maybe it was all in my head. Either way, I felt trapped between my simple life and the mysteries lurking in the shadows. Then, as I turned to leave the grave behind, I heard it again. The laughter, much closer this time. I froze. Sweat ran down my back, ice in my veins. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice got swallowed by the fields. I waited, my breath quickening. Nothing replied. Maybe I was just tired. But then the laughter came again, echoing in my ears. It felt wrong. It didn't sound like it belonged to this world at all. I stumbled back, wanting to run, but feeling rooted to the spot. The darkness seemed to whisper, taunting me. I stood, facing the grave, knowing I couldn't look back. I couldn't stay there any longer. My instincts kicked in, and I turned to sprint back toward the house. Each step felt heavier than before, like the ground was pulling me back, reminding me of the weight beneath those ancient stones. I barely made it back before I felt two things collide within me, fear and confusion. Inside, I locked the door. I took a moment to gather myself, the familiar walls now feeling alien. I was safe, at least for now, but something told me this wasn't over. My heart thudded against my chest, and I forced myself to take slow breaths. The silence outside was unnerving. I peeked out the window, scanning the fields that seemed to stretch endlessly in the moonlight. Everything looked normal, but I knew that wasn't the truth. I spotted my cows, still clustered beneath the oak tree. They were restless. Their eyes glimmered, reflecting the moonlight as they gazed back at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know what was happening. Despite my fear, curiosity gnawed at me. Maybe there was an explanation buried beneath the laughter and shadows. The next morning, I visited Old Man Turner, who's lived in the area longer than anyone remembers. As I stepped into his cluttered barn, he looked up from a pile of hay with a suspicious eye. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, a grin flickering across his weathered face. "I found something out in the corn," I admitted, heart racing as I recounted my discovery about the grave. His smile faded, replaced by a serious look that unsettled me. "Ah, the Davis plot," he murmured. "That grave belonged to a woman named Eliza. The locals told stories about her, things that happened after she passed." I listened intently as he revealed tales of strange occurrences and unexplained noises near that spot. The way he spoke, it was as if the memories were alive, dancing between us. "There were whispers of her not resting easy," he continued, his voice low. "Some believe she still walks those fields, seeking something she lost." I felt ice in my veins. It couldn't be true, but my instincts screamed otherwise. I asked him for more, desperate to unravel the truth. "What did she want?" I questioned, my voice barely above a whisper. Old Man Turner leaned closer. "No one knows for sure, but the laughter—" He hesitated, his gaze drifting off as if he could still hear it. "It's said to be her way of calling for help." Just then, something outside caught my attention. A flash of movement in the fields, shadowy figures darting back and forth. I stood frozen, heart racing again as my mind whipped into a frenzy. "Do you see that?" I asked, fear squeezing my throat. Old Man Turner squinted, his expression turning grim. "We should go." Before I knew it, we were racing out the barn, heading toward the fields. What had I stumbled into? With every step forward, the intensity of my fear deepened, mingling with an overwhelming urge to uncover the truth. As we neared the edge of the corn, everything went dark. The sky dimmed, and a thick fog rolled in, obscuring my view. I felt the chill creep back, wrapping around me like an old friend. Then came the laughter, clearer than ever, swirling through the air like a storm born of forgotten memories. I was not alone anymore. The laughter echoed all around us, a wild symphony that layered over the dread pooling in my stomach. I stumbled forward, feeling disoriented in the thick fog. Old Man Turner was at my side, his expression tight, eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay close," he warned, his voice cracking slightly. I nodded, but fear propelled my legs. We moved deeper into the field, each step muted by the heavy mist. The laughter morphed, twisting from playful to something more sinister. It was as if the very ground was mocking us. Then a sudden burst of light flared in front of us, illuminating a figure just beyond the corn. It was a woman, dressed in a flowing white dress, her hair cascading around her shoulders like a waterfall of shadow. The moment I locked eyes with her, the laughter stopped. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the remaining fog. A chill ran down my spine. Despite the eerie tone, I felt drawn to her, compelled to step forward. But Old Man Turner grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "Don't!" he hissed. "It's not her, you see, it's a trick!" The woman's eyes glimmered with something unrecognizable, and I was torn between fear and compassion. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice shaky, but loud enough to pierce the silence that settled after the laughter. Her lips curled into a sad smile. "I need to find my son," she said, her voice filled with sorrow. "He's lost, just as I am. Will you help me?" Before I could respond, the ground beneath us shifted. The earth trembled, and a low rumble filled the air. The cornstalks rustled violently, as if something unseen was emerging. I looked at Old Man Turner, panic rising in my chest. "Run!" he shouted, and we took off, racing back the way we came, the laughter returning, mixed now with the sounds of something pursuing us. Shadows danced at the edges of my vision, whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. We burst out of the fog, breaking through the thicker parts of the field, and suddenly the laughter ceased. A heavy silence enveloped us once more. I leaned against a nearby tree, gasping for breath, hands trembling. "Was that really her?" I managed to ask, trying to process what had just happened. Old Man Turner shook his head, looking back at the corn, his eyes filled with worry. "Eliza searched for her son for years before she died. People say she never found him, but you saw. She's not at peace." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling in. The fear hadn't left me. It had deepened, twisted around my thoughts like a creeping vine. What had I gotten myself into? Just then, the laughter returned, echoing among the trees, and it was louder, more persistent. I turned to face where it was coming from, my heart racing again. That's when I saw it. Something shuffling in the shadows, moving toward us between the trees, a figure cloaked in darkness, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the mist. "Old Man Turner, there's something else," I whispered, my voice trembling. As the figure stepped forward, I realized that this was no ghostly woman or lost spirit. It was something entirely different, something that felt far more dangerous. And then everything went dark again. The darkness swallowed us whole, and for a moment I lost all sense of direction. The air thickened with dread. I could hardly breathe. Was this the end? Then, just as suddenly, light pierced through the black. I blinked, disoriented, and caught a glimpse of Old Man Turner's face, now pale as paper. He looked at me with wide eyes, panic etching lines into his forehead. "Keep moving!" he shouted, and I felt a jolt of fear surge through me. We couldn't stop, but fear held my legs in place for a moment longer. "Where?" I gasped, my voice strained. I didn't even know which way was forward. "Toward the creek! It's the only way!" With that, we plunged forward, guided by instinct, as we burst out of the shadowy trees and back into the eerie stillness of the cornfield. The laughter faded, replaced by the soft rustle of the cornstalks swaying in the breeze. "Keep quiet," Old Man Turner murmured, glancing over his shoulder. The air felt electric, as if something lurked just beyond our view. We skittered through the rows, taking long strides, hearts pounding, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. My eyes darted left and right, searching for signs of movement. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind us, making me jump. It was too close. My heart raced as I turned, half expecting to see the cloaked figure again, but nothing emerged from the dark. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice just above a tremble. Old Man Turner nodded sharply. "We need to move faster." But before we could take another step, an eerie silence fell over the field, hanging like a weight, and then I saw it, a shadow shifting at the edge of the light. It was low to the ground, creeping toward us in a way that sent chills crawling up my spine. "What is that?" I shouted, instinctively taking a step back. A growl rumbled from the darkness, low and guttural. A pair of glowing yellow eyes locked onto ours, piercing through the mist. The laughter echoed again, but this time it was joined by snarls and hisses. Whatever was out there wasn't just watching, it was ready to pounce. "Run!" Old Man Turner ordered, and we took off once more, sprinting but not sure of where we were headed. Breathing heavily, I focused on keeping my legs moving, willing my mind to clear the panic. As we ran, I caught glimpses of twisted shapes darting between the cornstalks, their laughter chasing us, intertwining with the growls. The ground trembled underfoot as if it were alive. Just ahead the creek glimmered, a silver slip of promise in the moonlight. We needed to reach it before whatever was stalking us closed in for the kill. Gritting my teeth, I pushed myself harder, my legs feeling like lead. Then I heard it, a sudden silence, a drop in sound. We were close, but the air felt charged, crackling with energy. Just as we neared the creek, a shadow leaped from the corn, blocking our path. I skidded to a halt. This was the same figure from the shadows, that terrible creature, now fully formed. Its face was a grotesque mask of rage, lip curling back to reveal sharp teeth glinting in the moonlight. I froze, caught between fight and flight. Old Man Turner grabbed my arm, pulling me close. "We have to go around." But before we could move, the creature lunged. Time seemed to slow as I prepared for the hit. Then everything went dark again. My senses returned abruptly, like flipping a switch. I was lying on wet ground, cold moisture seeping into my clothes. and the sound of rushing water drowned out the last echoes of panic. The creek, we made it. I blinked against the dim light that crept through the branches overhead. Old Man Turner lay beside me, breathing heavily, his face still a mask of fear. We had escaped the creature, somehow, but I had no idea how long we had been out. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded slowly, but his wide eyes told a different story. "We mustn't stay here," he said, pushing himself up. "They'll follow us down to the water." I scrambled to my feet, glancing around the creek's edge. The dark water swirled ominously, almost inviting, as if it could swallow our secrets whole. But the danger from the cornfield felt more real than ever. "What the heck was that thing?" I asked, struggling to keep a shaky voice steady. "Something older than us," he replied, his eyes darting back toward the field. "Something that's always been here." I didn't understand, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. But before I could question him further, the laughter returned. It floated through the trees, light and mocking, but under it I heard the growls. They were close, too close. Old Man Turner took my arm and started to move downstream. "We need to put distance between us and them," he urged. I followed, my heart racing again as the sounds grew louder. I stumbled over rocks and fallen branches, hyper-aware that whatever had chased us was not far behind. The laughter mixed with the hisses, and it felt like it was closing in on us, wrapping around like a noose. We reached a bend in the creek, the water bending like a serpent, and I looked back to see glowing eyes emerge from the edge of the cornfield. Shapes moved among the stalks, more than one. A pack. "They travel as a group," Old Man Turner whispered, "always hunting together." My throat tightened. If there were more, we'd never make it out. I felt panic rise again, but I shoved it down. "What do we do?" "We cross the creek," he declared, pointing to a narrow stretch. "It's risky, but we may lose them if we can make it to the other side." Without waiting for my response, he stepped in, carefully balancing on slippery stones. I followed, though every cell in my body screamed to turn back. Just as I reached the water's edge, the laughter crescendoed, and I heard a new sound, something heavy thudding against the ground. I turned, my heart dropping as I saw the enormous dark shape leap from the corn into the moonlight, its form distorted and long. It charged toward the creek. "Keep going!" Old Man Turner shouted, his voice raw. I sprinted across the stones, feeling the cold water splash against my legs. The laughter morphed into blood-curdling howls. Just as I reached the far bank, I stumbled, falling to the ground. I turned to see the creature, its maw open wide, teeth gleaming in the pale light. My instinct screamed at me to run again, but my body felt heavy. I scrambled back to my feet, but in that moment, I had to know. That's when I saw it, another figure slinking behind the first, its eyes gleaming even brighter. We weren't alone, not anymore. I scrambled to my feet on the bank, heart hammering in my chest. The new creature lingered in the shadows, its gaze fixed on us. My stomach churned with fear. How many were there? "This way!" Old Man Turner pulled me down the bank, away from the water. I followed, desperately glancing back. The first creature was still there, the moonlight catching its jagged teeth as it let out a low growl. Reaching a thicket of bushes, we ducked low. I tried to catch my breath, pressing my back against the rough bark of a tree. The laughter faded slightly, but it would be back. The howls mixed with the rustling of leaves, as if nature itself was reacting to our presence. "What do they want?" I whispered, my voice shaky. "Fear," he replied, glancing at me with a determined expression. "They sense it. It makes them stronger." I wanted to argue that it wasn't our fault, but dread was pooling in my gut, growing with each passing moment. "Can we fight them?" "We can't," he said bluntly. "We can only survive." I felt a cold sweat trickle down my spine. Survival. The word hung heavy, echoing the stakes we faced. I vaguely remembered tales from biology class about predators and prey. In my mind, we were the prey, and they were the shadows creeping closer. Old Man Turner pulled out a small knife, its blade glinting faintly. If we find a way to distract them, a sound maybe, we might have a chance to slip away. I nodded, though doubt crept in. What could I do? I was just a kid, and these creatures were unlike anything I'd ever faced. My thoughts raced as I surveyed the area. Suddenly, an idea flickered in my mind. Back by the creek, I started slowly, there was that old rusted pipe. If we could make a loud noise, maybe we could draw them away. His expression was unreadable, but I thought I saw a glimmer of hope. It's risky, but it might work. We need to create enough sound to draw their attention. Then we do it, I said, digging deep to push past my fear. Old Man Turner stood up cautiously, scanning the area. We wait for the right moment, he said, his voice steady despite the tension. From our hiding spot I could hear the rustling growing louder, frustration palpable in the air. The laughter returned, sharper this time, mingling with the cries I could barely understand. "They're hunting," he murmured. My heart raced. "When do we go?" Just then, I heard it, a guttural growl that sent a chill down my spine. Old Man Turner's eyes shot wide. "Go now!" We burst from our hiding place, limbs pumping as we sprinted back toward the creek, my mind screaming at me to run faster. I felt the brush of the cool night air, but there was no time to think of anything but the pounding sound behind us. "Over there!" Old Man Turner shouted, pointing toward the rusty pipe. My legs felt like lead, but adrenaline kicked in, propelling us forward. A deafening roar erupted from the thicket behind us, and a surge of panic rushed through me as I glanced back. The creatures were not far behind, bounding with an unnatural speed. We reached the pipe, and I fumbled inside it, desperate to create the noise we needed. I grabbed a rock and slammed it against the metal. The echoes rang sharp through the night. Then everything shifted. The growls stopped. I turned to Old Man Turner, wide-eyed. Did it work? But the expression on his face told me otherwise. His eyes locked onto something above me, filled with terror. "Look out!" Suddenly I was pushed aside, and the world went dark as the sound of laughter erupted again, sending shivers down my spine. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I stumbled to my feet, disoriented. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. Just seconds ago, we had been running for our lives, and now there was silence. The laughter that had chased us seemed to fade into the shadows, leaving an uneasy stillness behind. "Turner?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. No response. Panic surged through me. It was too quiet. I scrambled to gather my bearings, squinting into the darkness that seemed to envelop me. That's when I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. Something shifted among the trees, a shadow darting away from me. My heart raced again. Had it spotted me? Was it one of those creatures? I took a step back, goosebumps creeping on my skin. "Old Man Turner," I called out again, louder this time, but only silence met my ears. My breath quickened. I had to find him. I shifted cautiously, the rustle of leaves above making my skin crawl. As I moved toward the creek, I suddenly remembered the knife he had. Where was it? My mind spun with worry, but I pressed on. Maybe he was just a little further down the bank. I had to believe he was okay. I crept along the edge, straining to see anything in the darkness. With every step, my mind replayed our frantic escape. But now it felt as if the woods had come alive, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Then I spotted something on the ground, a glint under the faint moonlight. I rushed over and knelt down. It was Turner's knife, stained. Had it been dropped in a struggle? My stomach twisted. I could feel myself faltering under the weight of fear and uncertainty. "Turner!" I shouted again, desperation lacing my voice. "Where are you?" A branch snapped behind me. My blood ran cold as I whirled around to face the source of the noise. Not far from where I stood, the outline of something large loomed in the shadows. My breath caught in my throat as it shifted, revealing a long, hunched form. It was one of the creatures. Panic coursed through my veins and I wanted to run, but I was frozen. Then something unexpected happened. The creature tilted its head as if trying to understand me. The air buzzed with a strange energy, and in that moment I saw something in its eyes. A glimmer of intelligence, not just primal instinct. Before I could process this new realization, a piercing howl echoed through the trees, causing the creature to rear back. I couldn't stay here. I had to move. I turned on my heel and sprinted back toward the creek, heart racing again. The laughter returned, and this time it was closer. I could feel their eyes on me, and I tore through the underbrush, branches clawing at my skin as I fled. Just as I reached the edge of the water, I skidded to a stop. In the moonlight, I finally saw Old Man Turner slumped against a rock. My heart dropped. I rushed to him, my breath sharp and ragged. "Are you okay?" I asked, shaking him gently. His eyes fluttered open. There was confusion, followed by recognition. "We have to go," he rasped, his voice raspy and urgent. Before I could respond, I heard rustling, more creatures approaching. They were closing in. "We can't stay here," I shouted, panic clawing at me. But then I noticed something glimmering in Turner's hand, a small pendant, shining like a beacon. I leaned closer. "That's it," he said weakly but insistently. "It can repel their influence. We need to activate it." I glanced behind us. The shadows were moving faster now. I had to trust him. But how? "Just hold it tight," he instructed. "Focus on driving them away." That's when I heard the laughter again, louder than before. It tumbled through the trees like a sinister wind, and my mind raced. I didn't know if it would work, but one thing was clear. We had no time left. I clutched the pendant tightly, my fingers trembling around its smooth surface. The laughter grew louder, tracing my spine like icy fingers. I could almost feel the creatures drawing closer, their shadows dancing just out of sight. "Think about the light," Turner urged, his breath shaky. "We need to focus." I squeezed my eyes shut, blocking out the chaos around me. I thought of warm sunlight cutting through the trees, bright and safe. The laughter faded for a moment, and I clung to that sliver of calm. Just as I opened my eyes, a heavy thud hit the ground nearby. I whirled around, panic flooding me again. One of the creatures stood just a few feet away, its yellow eyes fixated on us. The air was thick with tension. I felt the pendant vibrate slightly in my hand. "Now!" Turner shouted. In that instant, I held the pendant up. I didn't know if it would work, but I had to try. I focused as hard as I could, feeling the energy pulse from the charm. I thought back to the sunlit moments, to the safety of home. A wave of warmth glimmered around us, and I could see the creature hesitating. It tilted its head again, its eyes widening as if sensing something. I felt a jolt of courage surge through me. "Get back!" I commanded, unaware of where that strength had come from. The laughter dimmed, but just for a moment. I glanced at Turner, who was watching me with a mix of fear and hope. The other creatures were still coming, a dark mass of swirling shapes. They wouldn't give up easily. "Focus, don't let it go!" Turner urged, his voice strained. For a split second I felt the pendant grow warmer, pulsing with energy. I could see a barrier shifting around us, flickering in the dim moonlight. It was working. But the creatures didn't retreat. They were pressing in even faster now. Their growls mixed with the laughter, creating a cacophony that made my heart pound. "What do we do?" I yelled, panic rising again. "Make it stronger," Turner shouted. "You need to confront them." I took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of my fear into anger. "Leave us alone," I cried out, the words tumbling from my lips. At that moment the pendant flared, and the glow intensified. The advancing creatures jerked back as though struck, their eyes flickering with confusion. I could see the shadows wavering, losing their shape, My heart raced with the rhythmic pounding of my adrenaline. Suddenly the largest creature stepped forward. It had the same flicker of intelligence I'd seen before, but now its growl rumbled deep in its chest. I could feel the darkness swirling around us, a tangible force pushing against the glow of the pendant. That's when everything changed. With a deep, echoing howl, the creature lunged. It was like a black mass rushing at me, and I was paralyzed. "Now, do it now!" Turner's voice pierced through my fear. I thrust the pendant forward with both hands, yelling, "Get back!" In an explosion of light, the air crackled as the barrier expanded. It swept over the creatures, pushing them back as bright tendrils erupted into the dark, forcing them to retreat. I felt the energy drain from me, leaving me weak, but I didn't let go. Then, just as suddenly as they'd appeared, the creatures dissolved into the night. The laughter faded. The stillness returned, but my heart raced in the silence. "Did it work?" I gasped, panting heavily. Turner was eyeing the darkness cautiously. "For now, but we need to find shelter." I felt the pendant cool in my grip, but relief washed over me. We had to keep moving. Then I noticed something in the distance, an outline that didn't belong to the trees. "Turner, look!" I pointed. A figure was standing where the light met the shadows. My stomach dropped as recognition hit. It wasn't over yet. The figure stepped forward, the moonlight catching the outline of familiar features. It was someone I knew, a friend from school, Jamie. Except something was off. The smile on their face was too wide, almost unsettling, and their eyes glinted unnaturally. "Jamie?" I called, taking a cautious step forward. "What are you doing here?" They tilted their head, as if considering the question. "You shouldn't be out here," Jamie said, their voice carrying an echo that sent shivers up my spine. "This place is dangerous." I looked at Turner, who was backing away slightly. "I thought you were home. How did you get out here?" I felt a mix of relief and confusion. "I'm here to help," Jamie replied, stepping further into the light. "Their movements were too smooth, too deliberate. But you need to listen to me. This pendant, it holds more than you realize." "What do you mean?" I asked. Fear crept back into my heart. "Those creatures are drawn to it," they continued, eyes glinting with an intensity I didn't recognize. "I've seen them before. They won't stop coming, not until they get what they want." I tightened my grip on the pendant, its cool surface contrasting with the heat rising from my anxiety. "What do they want?" Jamie smiled again, but the expression felt hollow. "They want to drag you back into the darkness. You have to give them a reason to leave you alone." Before I could process their words, a low growl filled the air, echoing in the trees around us. The sounds of the night shifted. The stillness was replaced by a heavy weight of tension. I could feel shadows creeping closer, watching us. "Turner, we need to go," I urged, already feeling panic rising as the laughter began again. Jamie stepped forward, blocking our path. "You don't understand," they said, voice lowering. "You can't just leave. You need to respond before it's too late." "Answer what?" I shouted, heart racing, glancing nervously at the tree line. "The creatures feed on your fear. You must confront them, not just with light, but with the truth. Only then will they lose their power." "Stop!" Turner yelled, grabbing my arm. "We can't trust," but Jamie shook their head. "You have to decide," they said, their voice low and hypnotic. "Otherwise, there's no escape." An icy shiver ran through me. I made eye contact with Turner. We were being backed into a corner by something that wasn't Jamie anymore. "What do we do?" I whispered, fear clawing at my throat. And then I saw it, a flicker in the darkness. In the distance, the creatures were regrouping, eyes shining against the moonlight. They seemed to pulse with an insatiable hunger. "Now," Jamie urged, stepping toward the shadows. "This is your moment." In that instant, I understood the choice before me. I could either protect myself with the pendant or confront this twisted fate before it swallowed us whole. But was I ready to face whatever truth lay in the dark? Before I could answer, the laughter grew louder, echoing around us. Then the shadows surged forward. "Run!" Turner shouted. With my heart racing, I turned and sprinted, dragging Turner behind me, but the darkness pursued, relentless and hungry. The last thing I heard before everything turned to chaos was Jamie's voice, distorted and distant. "It's not over yet." I stumbled down the creek bank, adrenaline surging through my veins, the laughter trailing us like a wicked ghost. "Where do we go?" I gasped. Old Man Turner pulled me around a bend, the cold grip of fear settling heavy in my stomach. "We need to find cover, maybe even wait this out." As we reached a thicket of bushes, I could hear the laughter more clearly now, a sorrowful, echoing sound that pierced through the night. The creatures were closer. I felt their presence, lurking just beyond the trees, shadows swirling with malice. We ducked low, hiding behind the thick brambles and underbrush. Old Man Turner's face was pale, shadows flickering across his features as he scanned the darkness. "We can't stay here long," he whispered, pulling out the pendant again. "We need to ward them off if they approach." I nodded, gripping the pendant tightly. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, and we both flinched as sharp twigs snapped somewhere in the gloom. "I can't believe Jamie showed up," I murmured. "That was not them." Turner's brow furrowed. "It felt wrong. We don't know who or what that was, and we can't outrun them forever." Suddenly the laughter rose again, an echoing chorus that chilled my bones. It seemed to weave around us, as if the shadows themselves were calling out. I felt a pull, a compulsion to respond, but I pushed it away. "What do we do?" I pressed, panic constricting my throat. "We need to distract them again, but stronger this time," Turner said, his eyes darting to the creek. "If we can make noise, draw them away, it might buy us enough time to get some distance." Just then, I spotted something in the water, an old fishing tackle box half submerged in the creek. "What about that?" I suggested, my chest tightening under the weight of urgency. "We can make a loud noise with it, right?" Turner nodded, his expression grave. "Let's go." Steeling myself, I shifted through the bushes toward the water, careful not to make a sound that would give us away. When I reached the box, I pulled it out, feeling its damp weight. "Now!" Turner urged, but as I made my way back, the shadows darted through the trees, and I froze. The laughter swelled, too close for comfort. Without thinking, I swung the tackle box against a tree trunk, the loud clanging ricocheting through the stillness. The laughter abruptly cut off, and for a beat silence reigned. But that stillness was fleeting. I heard a growl rumble from the shadows, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps closing in. My heart raced. "Keep going," Turner urged, and we took off further down the bank, leaving the creek's edge behind. But no matter how fast we ran, I felt their dark shapes lurking close behind us, watching, waiting. As we emerged into a more open area, the moon cast a silvery glow. My heart thudded in my chest. "What now?" I panted. Turner pointed to a dilapidated barn on the outskirts of our farm, partially hidden behind a thicket of trees. "Head there. It might buy us some time to regroup." We sprinted toward the barn, the shadows weaving behind us with predatory speed. I held my breath, crossing the threshold just as the air shifted, dispersing a chill that seemed to wander in with us. Inside, the musty smell hit me, the remnants of years gone by clinging thickly around old lumber and cracked walls. "Where to now?" I whispered urgently. "Find something to block the door," Turner said, scanning the dim interior. I rushed to a pile of old barrels, pushing them against the barn door, listening to the heavy thuds as the darkness outside swirled closer. Each thump made my heart race faster. "Do you think it's over?" I asked desperately. "I don't know," he whispered back, eyes narrowed, peering through a crack in the weathered door. "But those creatures draw from our fear. We can't let them find us. We need to stay calm." Another deep growl echoed from outside, reverberating ghostly through the barn. I felt the weight of it. They were circling, sniffing the air, their presence thick. "Do you have any more of that light?" I stammered, clutching the pendant. "Yes," he said, pulling the small knife out again. "But it's not just about light. We need to project our intent, drive them away." I swallowed hard, the panic igniting again. "What if it's not enough? What if—" Before I could finish, a crash sounded from the door, and the laughing snaked through the cracked wood, rising once more, a cacophony that grew louder. "We need to respond," he urged, holding the pendant higher, a burst of pale light breaking through the gloom. But it didn't work like before. The shadows surged forward, a mass of swirling darkness, and something in me began to crumble under their collective weight. As the creatures slammed against the door, I could see their forms shifting, grotesque grins, widening like a nightmare come to life. "Hold on tight!" Turner shouted, forcing my hands around the pendant. "We can do this. We have to confront them together." And then something within me flickered, a spark that ignited in defiance against the darkness. "Get back! Leave us alone!" I found myself shouting. The laughter morphed into sharp hisses, a mix of confusion and anger. There was a moment of hesitation. "This is your moment!" Turner shouted again, the knife urging forward, my voice joining in a rallying cry against the darkness. Then everything erupted. A blinding light surged from the pendant, enveloping us in warmth, pushing against the shadows that writhed and recoiled. I felt it coursing through me, igniting the fears that I had carried. The phantom laughter turned into shrieks of frustration as it expanded outward, forcing the creatures back. But as the light grew brighter, I glimpsed Jamie's face hovering in the chaos, a warped smile stretching across their features. "You can't escape the truth. You will pay." In a moment of clarity, I understood. The true fight was not just against these creatures, but against the fears they represented. I had to confront the haunting whispers from within, refusing to let them consume me. I focused, channeling everything I had, amplifying the light. "You don't own me," I screamed into the abyss. With that, the darkness shattered. The cacophony of laughter echoed and fell into silence, the shadows retreating into nothingness as the light erupted, blinding me for an instant. Then, quiet. When my eyes adjusted, the barn stood still. Turner looked at me, breathless, alive with a realization. I felt a weight lift, a part of me reclaimed, free. Yet, as the dust settled, fragments of questions lingered. Had we truly come out unscathed? Were they really gone? I took a shuddering breath, glancing at the barn door, then at Turner. "Is it really over?" He smiled faintly, though uncertainty danced in his eyes. "For now." But I had learned something profound. The darkness may retreat, but the light is something we nurture within ourselves. I would carry both, knowing that tomorrow brought its own set of mysteries. As we exited the barn, the fields were eerily quiet, the moon still watching, holding its secrets close. The fragments of laughter still hung at the fringes of my mind, a reminder that while we may escape the shadows, they linger, forever a part of the landscape. And though we made it through, I knew not everything was resolved. Many questions remained, truths to be uncovered, new fears to confront. And sometimes that is enough.